All right, welcome to Tom Swift Inventors Academy, The Drone Pursuit, Chapter 9, read by me, Mrs. Lisa Marie Jensen, the Title I teacher at both Central and Kershaw. I hope you guys are enjoying the book so far. Chapter 9. I was the first to arrive at the library after school. Although I had 2 other classes with Noah, we didn't speak much. I didn't get a chance to tell him about the second text I had received. Then again, I didn't know if I would. I didn't think it would help convince him to keep the drone in the server room. And, to be honest, I was a little upset that he didn't want to help keep someone from hacking into my dad's company. I scanned the library. There were fewer students staying after school to work on projects, but there were still enough to keep our meeting from looking out of place. Sam and Amy entered the library. Sam wore a smug smirk while Amy stared at her feet more than usual. Noah was right behind them. They joined me at the table near the back of the library. "So, are you ready?" Sam beamed. "Ready for what?" I asked. She reached into her backpack and pulled out something thin and flat. She cupped it in her hand and placed it in the center of the table. She removed her hand, and Mr. Conway's face was smiling up at me. It was his ID badge. "What did you do?" I asked, covering the badge with both hands. I slid it toward me and hid it with my body. "I said not to ask, remember?" Sam replied, giddy with excitement. I looked around the table. Noah was speechless, eyes wide with both hands over his mouth. Amy stared at her lap, wringing her hands together. Sam grinned as she pulled her glasses off and cleaned them with the hem of her shirt. She put her glasses back on, glancing expectantly at all 3 of us. Finally, she rolled her eyes. "Okay, ask! What did you—" I began. "How in the—" Noah began. Sam put a hand on Amy's shoulder. "Amy was amazing!" Amy groaned. "Don't remind me." She covered her face. "I'm a thief now." Noah and I were shocked. "Amy stole it?" I asked. "Amy?" Sam gave Amy a playful shove. "She didn't steal anything. We're just borrowing it for an hour, tops." This didn't seem to make Amy feel any better. She groaned again. Sam leaned forward. "I was the distraction," she exclaimed. I explained. I went up to Mr. Conway to apologize for spilling the soda, which I really did feel bad about, by the way, and while I was talking to him, Amy slipped the badge off his cart. Sam shook Amy by the shoulder. "You should have seen her. She was amazing." "And he didn't see you?" Noah grinned and glanced at Sam and me. "Wow! I've always been very good at not being noticed," Amy sighed. "It's a gift." Noah laughed. "So you decided to use your powers for evil instead of good?" Amy groaned again and dropped her head to the tabletop. "I can't believe you talked me into this." She bumped her forehead on the table a couple of times. I uncovered the badge and turned it over in my hands. The entire thing was a slim plastic case that held Mr. Conway's ID badge on one side and the security key card on the other. "Come on," said Sam. "Let's go change out the battery. We may be able to get this back to him before he notices it's missing." Noah stood. "The heck with that. Let's get our drone back." I stood and slid the badge into my hip pocket. "Come on, man. We need to see what's going on in there." Amy shook her head without lifting it from the table. "I can't add breaking and entering to my rap sheet, guys." "Technically, it's just entering at this point," said Sam. She patted Amy on the back. "They can handle this. We'll just find out where Mr. Conway is to make sure he's not already in the basement." Amy dragged herself to her feet. "So I'm a lookout now, huh?" she asked. "Is there no end to my life of crime?" "Earpieces and phones, guys," Sam said as she pulled Amy out of the library. Sam seemed absolutely giddy. I had no idea she had such a devious side. "Come on, Tom," said Noah. "Let's just get the thing out of there." "What do you think Mr. Conway's going to think when the drone just suddenly vanishes?" I asked. "He probably forgot all about it," Noah replied. "Just something he found and set on an old shelf. I bet he finds tons of stuff around the school." Noah had a point. If Mr. Conway wasn't a notorious hacker, then he probably wouldn't notice. We could just drop all of this and get back to school, back to our invention. But what if Conway really was Shadowhawk? What if he was already onto us somehow and was sending those texts to me? He'd probably forgotten all about the drone, making it our secret weapon. We couldn't let that go to waste. "I'll make a deal with you," I said accordingly. "We sneak into the basement and look around. If we don't find anything suspicious, we get the drone and get out of there." Noah squinted. Really? Really, I answered. Deal, said Noah. Let's go. We pulled out our phones and connected them to our earpieces as we headed toward the stairs. Sam called me and Amy called Noah. We were now in constant contact as we made our way toward the stairwell. We slowed as we reached the bottom of the stairs. The last thing we wanted was to run into Mr. Conway as he entered or exited the basement. Everything was quiet, so we kept going to the bottom. Wait a minute, Noah said as he stepped off the last stair. Why are we being so cautious? We have his key card. He can't get into the basement. I put a finger to my lips in reply. Then I took that finger and pointed at the security door, actually beside the door. There's a keypad beside the card reader, I whispered. I'm sure he knows the code if he ever loses his card. Noah cringed. Right. We crouched under the stairs and waited. Mr. Conway might already be in the basement, so we weren't making a move until we heard otherwise. Got him, Sam's voice said in my earpiece. His car is outside the second-floor boys' bathroom. I hear noises in there, so I bet he's cleaning it. You'll excuse me for not checking it out personally. No problem, I replied. I'm sure that's him. She find him? Noah whispered. I gave a thumbs up. Let's go. We left the stairs and crossed to the security door. Looking through the glass window, the hallway beyond seemed deserted. I dug out the key card and placed it flat on the reader. The tiny red light turned green and the lock disengaged with a small click. Noah pulled the door open. We crept down the hallway. The main hall was as long as the ones in the floors above, but didn't have as many doors. We slowly opened the first door we came to. The room was pitch black beyond the threshold. Then I remembered the motion sensor switch from before and reached in and waved my arm around. The lights flickered on to reveal a large storeroom packed with storage boxes and old equipment. The next room was heating and air conditioning. The room roared with the large cooling unit, and huge vents extended from machines and crisscrossed around the room. My heart was racing. Even though the lighting wasn't as bright on the lowest level, it felt as if Noah and I were in the spotlight. We were alone in the wide corridor, and I felt very exposed. We hadn't seen anyone but Mr. Conway go down to the basement, but that didn't mean he was the only one with access. For all I knew, every one of the faculty members had access through the security door. It wasn't like we had 24-hour surveillance on the basement entrance. We didn't know who else came down here on occasion. If someone entered the basement while we were down there, we would have very little time, if any, to find a place to hide. We kept out of the center of the hallway just in case. Even though the temperature was cool, beads of sweat began appearing on my forehead. We came across another storeroom, and then we opened a door and were hit with a wall of cold air. I reached into a chilled, dark room and waved my arm. The light snapped on to reveal a familiar setting. This is it, I told Noah. The room looked just like it did in the video, but I wasn't expecting the sound and temperature difference. The small space was filled with the white noise of fans cooling the server farm. There was also a deep rumble coming from behind the small closet door. I didn't know what the door was when I saw it on video, but I figured it out now. It's freezing in here, Noah said over the whirring fans. I opened the door to confirm my suspicions. The servers have their own air conditioning unit. I pointed to the machine that nearly filled the small closet-like space to cool them. Of course, Noah replied. He turned and spotted the drone. There it is! As Noah grabbed the drone, I moved to the small computer desk. Just as before, the geometric screensaver animated the screen. I tapped the space bar and the shapes disappeared. The school's login page appeared in its place. Isn't that suspicious? I asked Noah. Every computer tied into the school system is offline, but this one. Noah shook his head. Maybe it's not part of the system. I pointed to the screen. It has the school's login screen. Everyone knew that the Swift Academy faculty members had their own usernames and passwords to log into the system. Then I noticed something tucked under the keyboard. I pulled out 2 colorful slips of paper. They were entry tickets to something called none other than Hackapalooza. I held up the tickets triumphantly. Dude, come on! Noah barely registered the tickets. Yeah? So? He asked. I'm going to that next month, too. I waved the tickets. You don't think this is enough evidence for our deal? What? Just because it has hack in its name? Asked Noah. It's a programming convention, mostly about games and stuff. It's no big deal. I sighed. Look, I thought it was a crazy idea that Mr. Conway was this shadow hawk guy, I admitted. I really did, and maybe he's not. But you have to admit that everything we've seen seems a little suspicious. It certainly warrants more investigation. Okay, fine, I can see it, said Noah. So tell your dad or tell the FBI. Let them do it. He clutched the drone to his chest. But leave our drone out of it. We have too much work to do on it. I could tell there was no convincing him. I knew my friend too well. All right, I said. I replaced the tickets and turned to leave. A deal's a deal. Wait, said Noah. Drop Mr. Conway's keycard on the floor. He'll think it fell off here. Good idea. I pulled out the ID badge and placed it face up on the floor, right where he couldn't see it. Hello? Guys? Sam's voice crackled in my ear. Sam? I asked. Can you hear me? Noah touched his earpiece. Amy's trying to talk to me, but I'm only getting every other word. It must be interference from all the power cables on the servers, I said. He's to you. Someone. Him. Sam's garbled voice said. I didn't get that, I told her. Say it again. Noah's eyes widened. Amy says Conway's coming. Ace meant someone with him? Sam's voice said. Oh, man, I said. I opened the door and peeked outside. I could see Mr. Conway at the other side of the door. A tall, thin man in a blue shirt stood behind him. I could just make out Mr. Conway searching through his pockets. Can you see him? Asked Noah. Yeah, I replied, and he definitely knows he's missing his key card now. I watched as Mr. Conway poked at the keypad beside the door. Then they walked in. I eased the server room door shut. My heart raced. They're coming, I said. We have to hide. Noah glanced around and shook his head. Where? I scanned the room. The racks of servers were too close to the wall to hide behind. The shelves were too full to hide on or under. That just left one place. I opened the door to the air conditioning unit. In here. Noah shook his head. How are we going to fit in there? Noah shook his... Oh, we will, I replied. Put the drone back and come on. Noah held the drone tighter. No way! You want him to find it missing while we're still here? I asked. Noah thought about it for a second. Way too long, if you ask me. And then finally put the drone back on the shelf. Then we both backed into the small closet. My back pressed against the air conditioning unit, and Noah pressed against me. It was a really tight fit. Close the door, I told Noah. I'm trying, he said. His body pushed against mine as he pulled the door shut. He got it to latch on the third try. The roar of the unit was deafening. It was so loud that I couldn't hear when Mr. Conway and the other man entered the server room. I could only tell they were inside when they began speaking. There it is, Mr. Conway said. I'm always losing... And that's all I got. I assumed that he had just found his key card. I strained to listen over the roaring unit, but I heard only murmurs and the occasional laugh. Every now and then I could make out familiar phrases like Swift Enterprises, virus, and firewall. It sounded as if Mr. Conway had an accomplice. Noah was closer to the door. Maybe he could make out more of what they were saying. I didn't know how long we could stay cooped up in such a tight space. I've never been claustrophobic, but I could see how it could get to some people. I could see even more so now. I tried not to think about it. Instead, I concentrated on making out what Mr. Conway and his accomplice were saying. I heard more of the murmuring voices, but nothing I could make out. And then, nothing at all for quite a while. I gasped when a shaft of light hit my face. I thought for sure that Mr. Conway had opened the door to discover us hiding inside. Instead, it was Noah. He slowly cracked open the door to peek outside. Are they gone? I whispered. Then I realized that there was no way he could hear me over the roaring unit. Noah opened the door more and poked his head out. I breathed a sigh of relief when he stepped all the way out. I was right behind him. We had the server room to ourselves once again. Okay, 2 things, said Noah. 1, he pointed to the air conditioning closet. I don't ever want to do that again. Agreed, I said. And 2, he snatched the drone off the shelf. We have to replace this battery and put it back. Really? I asked. I dug into my pocket to retrieve the fresh battery. Yeah, Tom, Noah nodded. I didn't catch everything, but they were talking about Swift Enterprises and its security. I think they're both in on it.